Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and here with another update on the Tim Norman case. Well, it turns out that Tim paid, which I think we already had figured this out already based on the amount of payments that they said that the feds were saying that Tim had transferred to Terica Ellis. But now it says that the Memphis woman arrested for her alleged role in the 2016 killing of Andre Montgomery in St. Louis will remain in federal custody following a judge's decision to deny bond. And so a criminal complaint was filed against the 36-year-old mother of two in July that named her as a participant in a conspiracy to have Montgomery killed. She was arrested in South Haven, Mississippi in mid-August. Prosecutors announced her charge on August 18th. And you guys can check out my prior videos on this case involving the death of Andre Montgomery, who is the grandson of Robbie Montgomery of Sweetie Pie's fame and Welcome to Sweetie Pie's TV show that aired on the OWN network. And so Andre was killed back in 2016, and now Robbie Montgomery's son Tim, whose real name is James Timothy Norman, has been arrested with a murder for hire plot. And so the magistrate judge Charmaine Claxton, who presided over the Wednesday hearing, told Ellis she would stay in the custody of the U.S. Marshals, who would transfer her back to St. Louis County for trial. And I shared with you guys in another video that Tim had his arraignment in Mississippi, and he too will be going back to St. Louis, and the case is going to be moved under the federal jurisdiction for St. Louis. I don't believe that he has been granted bail either, and probably will not be. So Ellis, who is currently being held in a detention facility in Mason, Tennessee, did not speak during the hearing. Clad in an orange penitentiary-issued jumpsuit with long braids and a white face mask, Ellis began weeping when it was clear she would not be released on bail. According to St. Louis area detective Donald Thurman, 2 prepaid cell phones were used in the commission killing of Montgomery, who was 21 at the time of his death and had just relocated back to St. Louis. Ellis, Thurman said, worked for a period of time as an exotic dancer at the St. Louis club Bottoms Up. Thurman said Ellis and Norman had known one another for a few years and were physically intimate at times. Norman, Thurman said, promised Ellis $10,000 for her help in, quote, securing the location of Mr. Montgomery, end quote. And then it goes on to say, on the day of the murder, a text was exchanged. He texted her the address of his location, the location where he was ultimately found shot to death. Thurman said before the murder, Ellis was able to convince Montgomery to come outside of a residence located on Natural Bridge Road in St. Louis. Ellis had purchased a pair of pants for Montgomery, and he stepped inside of her car to talk. It's not immediately clear to the public what happened in the minutes after Montgomery left Ellis's car, but Montgomery was shot by an additional party and Ellis left the area. Investigators were able to use tracker data for the devices, which is how they learned that Ellis immediately drove home to Memphis after Montgomery's death. And so defense attorney Scott Hall made the case for his client's release on bail, in part by questioning Thurman if Ellis actually knew Norman planned on having Montgomery killed. According to prosecutors, Norman had taken out a total of $450,000 in life insurance against his nephew years prior. It was possible, Thurman said, that Ellis did not know about the life insurance policy. When you spoke with Miss Ellis during her statement, did she ever indicate that she understood he would be killed? Asked Hall. Thurman said he did not recall Ellis confirming that she knew of Norman's intention to have Montgomery killed. During the hearing, it was revealed that Montgomery was a suspect in the theft of $200,000 in cash from Norman's home. Thurman said that Ellis understood Montgomery was a suspect in the theft of a large amount of cash from Norman and knew Norman's, quote, boys, end quote, wanted to get up with him. Ellis has no prior convictions on record that involve any level of violence, a fact Hall said should be considered when weighing the decision to keep her in custody. Ultimately, Clarkson said Ellis might not have a violent history and she might not have been the person who pulled the trigger and snuffed out Montgomery's life, but there was an opportunity to be helpful in the ensuing 4 years and it was not taken. She chose to remain silent, therefore making her a co-conspirator. Now we know that when Tim took this money out years prior, maybe it was not with the intent of killing Andre. Maybe he didn't know back then that that's what he was going to do. And then it makes me wonder, now they're saying that Andre allegedly stole $200,000 from Tim's home. Why would Tim even have had $200,000 in his home, and where did he get it from? Because he being sued by everybody, you know, which I shared with you in my last video, where every place that he opened up a restaurant, he ended up being evicted and owing, you know, over $100,000 in back rent. And so it seems to me that the motive to kill Andre was probably more so to pay off all these. Well, no, because it seemed like the lawsuits came. Yeah, scratch that, because the lawsuits were after Andre was killed. So maybe he did kill him for the $200,000 that was allegedly stole from him. I want to say somewhere I read that he took those policies out in 2014. So, and then Andre was killed in 2016. So 2 years prior. So I guess we need to learn the date of this $200,000 being stole from Tim's house, because you guys remember at one point Andre did return to Texas to live with his mom, but then he started getting in trouble again and he ended up coming back to St. Louis to live, and he had just returned to St. Louis when this murder took place. And so maybe all of this, going back to live with the mom, then coming back to St. Louis, maybe all of this has something to do with this $200,000 that Tim claims that he stole from him. You know, but once again, where did Tim get $200,000 from? So we need to figure that out. You know, maybe he had a life insurance policy out on somebody else. And then this Terica girl is just stupid to even get herself involved with this. And to, like, why did she think Tim was giving her this $10,000 to find out when Andre was home, when all he could have did was called Andre on the phone and asked Andre, was he home? I mean, he knew where Andre lived at. And then the fact that he flew from California to St. Louis, you know, that night, I'm starting to wonder if Tim is the one that pulled the trigger. You know, like, he was just stupid. She was stupid. And no, you don't deserve to get out on bail, because you can't be so dumb that you didn't know. Like, even if he didn't tell you that he was planning to kill Andre, girl, I think you street smart enough to know that he was going to do something to Andre, that it was important to him to know Andre's whereabouts. And so maybe the reason nobody has come up and pointed a finger at the shooter is because Tim was the doggone shooter. Okay, so that's it for me, guys. So go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel, and until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye bye.